Hi kids, welcome back. Today we're going to look at the third beatitude. Remember that a beatitude is all about how we behave, thinking about how Jesus would like us to be, rather than the me attitudes where we put ourselves first and do things to please ourselves. We are going to learn what Jesus means when he says, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." What attitude do you think we show others when we are meek? Meekness is being gentle and humble, putting others first. But meekness is not weakness. To be meek is to have strength under control. Let me think of an example. Have you ever ridden a horse? For the horse to learn to follow your direction, it has to be trained beforehand to accept your instructions and follow your lead. When we are meek before God, we let God lead our lives because we know God's ways are the best. Have a look at this map of the world on the wall. As I place these bees on the map, can you think of people that have lived in a way that has shown that they have trusted God as He leads them? There is a story in the Bible that will help us to understand what Jesus means when he talks about allowing God to be in control and letting him lead. Let's now have a look at the story of Joseph.
God's story, Joseph. So part of God's story is about a guy named Joseph, and it begins like this. Once there was a guy named Joseph who had 10 older brothers and one younger one. When Joe was a boy, he was his dad's favorite. In fact, his dad liked him so much better than his brothers that he gave Joe a special gift to prove it. You can imagine this made his brothers jealous. And Joe only made things worse. He told his brothers about dreams he had where he was ruling over them. Well, this made Joe's brothers furious. One day they were working and saw Joe coming. They said, "Here comes that dreamer." They threw Joe into a dark pit. They might have left him there forever, but they met some men traveling from Egypt and sold Joe to them as a servant instead. They thought that was slightly nicer than leaving him in a pit. Then they went home and told their father Joe had been killed by a wild animal. This broke their dad's heart. Kids, these brothers were really bad news. Selling a sibling is never a good idea, ever. But the Bible says the Lord was with Joe. When Joe was a servant, he worked for a really important rich guy named Potiphar. And Potiphar liked Joe so much, he put him in charge of the whole house. Joe was happy until one day he was blamed for something he didn't do, and Potiphar sent him straight to jail. Well, God was still with Joe, even in prison. The guard decided he liked Joe so much, he put him in charge of all the other prisoners. Then God gave Joe special knowledge about dreams. When two prisoners had dreams, Joe knew what they meant, so he told them. 2 years later, Egypt's ruler called Pharaoh had a dream, and nobody knew what it meant. But by now, one of the two prisoners Joe had helped was out of jail and working for Pharaoh. He told Pharaoh about Joe, and God helped Joe figure out what Pharaoh's dream meant. But Pharaoh's dream was really more of a nightmare. It meant that everybody in Egypt would have food for 7 years, then be hungry for 7 years. Joe told Pharaoh the only way to survive was to store food during the 7 good years. Well, Pharaoh thought Joe's idea was brilliant. He put him in charge. During the 7 hungry years, nobody could eat without getting food from Joe. He was like a human vending machine. Well, remember how Joe had 11 brothers? Like everybody else, they had to get food from Joe. And when they came, they didn't even recognize their brother. But Joe knew who they were. He secretly tested them to see if they changed. After all, they did throw him in a pit and sell him. Finally, he couldn't hide who he was from his brothers anymore. He told everyone to leave the room because he was about to cry. After sobbing for a few minutes, he told them, "I'm your brother Joseph. I'm the one you sold." The brothers couldn't believe it. They had hurt Joe, but God had taken care of him during the good times and the bad. Even with everything they had done to Joe, he forgave them because he was willing to follow God, even when it was hard. Joe told them, "You planned to harm me, but God planned it for good." And God used Joe to save many lives, including the family that was part of God's special rescue plan. And that's the story of Joseph. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Joe was his dad's favorite. His brother sold him. Potiphar put Joe in charge. Joe was sent to jail. The guard put Joe in charge. Pharaoh had a bad dream. Joe told him what it meant. Pharaoh put Joe in charge. Joe's brothers had to come to him for food. Joe forgave them. This was part of God's rescue plan. And that's a part of God's story.
Hello! How lovely to see you. I have just received a letter and a package, and it's very exciting. You see, the letter says, "Dear Professor, here is your latest assignment. Please investigate the contents of this parcel and record any results." How intriguing! I wonder what is in this parcel. So, in order to discover what I am investigating, I shall open the parcel. Here we go. Oh, there seems to be rather a large number of balloons. Now, I wonder if it is possible to overinflate a balloon. Let's give it a go. It appears it is. So, what have I discovered? You can put air into balloons. You can also let air out of balloons. It's definitely possible to overfill a balloon, and if you do, there will be a result. I think you'll find that's quite a result. Goodbye for now. So the professor showed us that you can put air into a balloon, you can let air back out of a balloon, but if you keep on overfilling it, the balloon will explode. Now, today's Beatitude teaches us, blessed are those who don't show off, but think of others first. But what has that got to do with balloons? So in the story, Joseph started off puffed up, and he was a bit full of himself, and he felt like showing off. But he learned to actually let go of that pride, let it all out, and then he learned to think of others first. Just like Joseph, sometimes we can become a bit puffed up and full of pride, but God teaches us to let that pride out, to become meek and humble, because if we don't, we could spoil ourselves. Blessed are those who don't show off, but think of others first.
Hi kids! Now, as everyone knows, I am amazing at blowing up balloons. Ah! Okay, well, before you show off about something you think you might be brilliant at, be careful. Because this week's beatitude is, blessed are those who don't show off, but think of others first, for they shall be given the earth. I do need some help tying this, please.
Okay, I will help you. It is easy. There you go.
Thank you. Once you have blown up and tied your balloon, you'll need to draw some black stripes around it using a marker pen or something similar. I'm using a Sharpie here. I'm going to draw a double line all the way around and then start filling it in. There we are. Having finished filling in all the black stripes, we now draw the bee's face, and you can give it a nice smiley face, just like that. For the wings, you could use tissue paper, you could use bubble wrap, or you could use some thin foam packing material, which I have chosen to use for my wings. So here's one, and I just get my marker again and draw some lacy patterns on my wings, and then a simple matter of a piece of tape to stick it on, and then the same on the other side, and there is your finished balloon bee, which will help you to remember not to get too puffed up. As this week's beatitude card is about people who shall be given the earth, we're going to make a mobile bee which looks like a little present. Watch this space. For your bee present, you will need a rectangle of yellow cardboard paper. Mine is 7 centimeters by 4. A marker pen, googly eyes, scissors, glue stick, and a pipe cleaner. So I have folded the last 1.5 centimeters over, but before I do that, I'm going to cut the corners so that they are rounded like that, and then I'm going to use my glue stick to fold this over like that, like an envelope. Then I take my Sharpie and I'm just going to draw some stripes on again to look like a bee, and then I'm going to pop my googly eyes on. Having made a hole in the top of my bee present, I'm going to stick my pipe cleaner through it and then just simply twist it together like this, round 2 or 3 times for the antenna, and that is it, finished. So here we are, the present bee is now hanging on the mobile, and this reminds us that if we don't show off and think of others first, we will be given the earth. So I hope you will be present with us next week.
He's the one who makes the sun shine. He's the one who puts the moon in the sky.